Hello, welcome to Sparks 1524. I'm Nathaniel Miller. On this edition of The Writer's Craft, we're going to talk about stomping out the good idea fairy. Politely, of course. It doesn't matter what your occupation is. The good idea fairy afflicts all of us. Very rarely will the good idea fairy come and talk to you directly and bring inspiration to your own mind. Usually the good idea fairy likes to pass her messages on by walking up to somebody else, oftentimes somebody in authority that you're working for and answerable to, and usually at the last minute, and saying, bibbidi bobbidi boo, good idea, take it. And then that person brings it to you or me, and we're the ones that have to deal with it. The good idea fairy afflicts everybody, including us writers. Now, sometimes a good idea fairy does hit because your editor will tell you, hey, this is a good idea for your plot. Now, if it's your editor telling you that, that's not a bad idea. But what do you do when your friends or your family come to you all eager that I've got the greatest idea for your story, or I've got the greatest idea for a book with your characters that you want to write? It can be extremely frustrating. It can be a crazy maker, especially because how do you approach telling these people to pound sand without saying, go pound sand? I can obviously only speak from my experience. As much as I like to think about how much of a genius I am, and I do enjoy contemplating my genius, the fact is I'm one person and I'm locked up in this skull. However, speaking with other writers, my experience is not unique. Both having friends, and for me it's always friends, not family, because again, my family, we all have our own very direct sphere, so we're all doing our own thing. But for me, it's always my friends that come running up with that great idea. The last thing I want, my first visceral reaction is to put a big wall up and tell people to get out of my sandbox. This is my sandbox. I play in it. But that's the complete wrong way to handle the situation for a number of reasons. First off, the first thing you've got to do, and I've had to do when I have good friends come with good ideas, is you've got to remember these people are coming to you because they actually care about you. They care about me. They want to find a way to help you as a writer succeed. They want to be part of a world that to them is effectively magic. You watch an architect, you can see the blueprint get printed. You can see them gather the materials up. You can see them hire the crew. You can watch the house getting built. You can physically see the stages of the creative process until the house is there. Writers, we tell people we have an idea for a story, then they see the completed story. Now, yes, they can sit there and watch us type, but watching people type is not the same thing as watching a building get built, because you can understand 2x4, 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 cross beam, lintel, door, roof. To watch a writer, unless you are a writer, is to simply see somebody at a keyboard going, it's a very different thing. And to many people, that's magic. They don't have the discipline. They don't have the drive. They don't have the talent or even the interest enough to sit down and master the discipline to do it. It seems like magic. When people come to you with a good idea, yes, they want to be part of your world because they love your world. They love what you're doing. They love the fact that you as a writer are effectively a wizard, a magician spinning these yarns out of, it seems like nothing. For us as writers, we understand how things work up here within ourselves. We can talk to ourselves and our characters. We know how we organize information. We know where we get inspiration from, etc. ad nauseum. But to those who are not writers, it seems like magic. So they want to be part of it. And remembering that them expressing good ideas is actually, even if it's a bit ham-handed, they're expressing admiration for you and for me. They're expressing support for us. Remembering that they're coming from a place where they're trying to help us and even be a little part of what we're doing because they value us so much. That's actually quite an honor. That's quite a compliment. I make it a point to only accept plot ideas, character arcs, story arc ideas, anything for the story from my editor. In this case, it's Jerry, because his job is an editor. It's explicitly part of an editor's job to help improve the manuscript. His job is the editor. And as such, he actually gets credit. If you go on any of my books, Proud Lion, The Norfolk Murders are my most recent book, and So It Begins. You look at them on Amazon, you'll see by Nathaniel Miller, Jerry Foltz and Eric Butler. Eric is my artist. He does the covers for these things. All of these covers, they're done by Eric. Brilliant artist. I do the design. Here again, this is my sandbox. I do that design. Eric executes it to a level I could never do. Since his job is to take my design and execute the cover, when he has a suggestion for it, such as on this one, he actually suggested the airplane, because this story takes place on a flight line. He suggested having the airplane show up in there. I took it because his job is explicitly to help me take my design and make it better. Same thing with my editor. Jerry's job is explicitly to help make the manuscript better. We all think of that through grammar and spelling, but it's also making sure the story flows properly. So I take suggestions from them. I make it a point never to take it from anybody else for 2 reasons. Number one, this is my sandbox. My sense of purpose, my sense of accomplishment, my sense of pride is built on me writing this story start to finish myself. It's my work. The other is actually legal. And this was not something I thought about until J. Michael Straczynski was producing Babylon 5 back in the 90s. And I was a big, obviously, if you've watched my programming here, you know I'm a big Babylon 5 fan. The best science fiction of the 1990s. On the website Lurker's Guide to Babylon 5, he was commenting about, I forget which episode, but in his analysis, or his little place where he would talk to the fans on the website, someone had made a remark about him being given ideas. And he said that he didn't take ideas because, one, this is his story and he wanted to tell it, but the other was he didn't want to be legally obligated. If he uses a story device from somebody else, they could always come back and sue him for part of the royalties for that story, because now their idea, their intellectual property, has become critical to that story's success. I have no problem accepting jokes, quips, one-liners from my friends, and I've had plenty of friends tell me a joke that made me laugh, guffaw, or even make me grunt. Oh, I love it. That was awesome. Can I use it? Because a joke, a one-liner, is not critical to the story. If I have Isaac Shepard use a joke somebody else used and they decide they don't want it in there unless they get partial credit for the book, I can edit that joke out, replace it with something else, and the story still flows correctly. That joke was not critical to the story's success. Therefore, there's no legal jeopardy. But if you do talk to people, especially in writing, texts, emails, letters, whatever, or even talking, and they give you a story idea, a plot device, a character arc, something that is fundamental to the story's success, years later, they could come back and sue you for royalties. Now, we all say, oh, my friends would never do that. But come on, we all know relationships and people change over time. Sometimes things can turn hostile. Sometimes people do turn hostile on us. People change. The best way to protect yourself as a writer is simply not to accept ideas from other people, because that could put you in a legal position of having to give up part of your hard-earned money if their idea is a story device, a plot arc, something that actually has to happen to make the story successful. Another example is something I talked about last year in an early Writer's Craft program, or episode, I should say. I was talking about setting your story in real places to ground it in reality, but not get yourself in trouble for copyright or slander, libel, etc., etc. My example was, you have a couple characters talking at a McDonald's. If the conversation they're having at that McDonald's, one, does not bring the McDonald's brand into disrepute, which could get you into trouble for there, but they could have that conversation at this McDonald's, at Olive Garden, at Starbucks, or out in a city park. The location is not critical to the story. The conversation is, but not the location. Then McDonald's is not going to sue you for copyright infringement, because McDonald's is not critical to your financial success. The conversation is. Now, if McDonald's is critical to the success of that story, to that scene, for whatever reason, the golden arch or the golden arches symbol becomes a metaphor that the character uses to realize the solution. Now McDonald's brand has become critical to your financial success, and you owe them money. It's the same thing. If somebody gives you a joke or a one-liner, If it's not critical to the story's success, maybe it might be fun to use because maybe it is a great turn of phrase. But if it's critical to the story's success, then you're going to owe them. Morally, if not legally. And I personally don't want to be in that opinion. I don't want to be in that position. So I do not take major story elements, story ideas, plot arcs, character arcs, anything from other people, except Jerry, my editor, because his job is explicitly to help me improve that manuscript at that point. But this comes back to how do I handle stomping out that good idea theory? Oh, sorry. Got a little carried away there. The first one is to remember that the people who come to you, especially when they're your friends or family, they're doing it from a place of love, a place of they really care about you. This is an expression of the value you hold for them. So be careful where you get your ideas from. But always be respectful, if not even affectionate, in turning down friends or family who have ideas. Don't be afraid to draw a boundary. Boundaries are important. Firm boundaries are important. But be graceful about it. Be gracious. Remember that they're coming from a place of love, a place of respect, a place of admiration even. That's a compliment to you as a writer. It's a compliment to me as a writer. And don't be afraid to explain why. I have no problem telling people that I'm going to pass on their ideas, and I don't even want to hear the idea. Sometimes they blurt it out before I can stop them, and I really don't want that because now it is in my head, and I've got to be careful not to try and use it or something close to it. Most people, though, don't just blurt out the idea. They're like, hey, I got a great idea for your character, or I got a great idea that might work in this book you're working on. Hey, I appreciate it very much, and I'm very, very honored that you were thinking of me so much. I just tell them, I make it a point not to take ideas from people because, one, it's a point of pride. This is my work, and I want to do it. And two, it could potentially open me up to legal jeopardy down the line, not with you, but with other people if I get into a habit of doing this. And when you explain those things to them, most people completely understand, especially the legal side. Well, that's this week's episode here of The Writer's Craft. Anyway, if you like this video, please feel free to share it with anybody you think would also benefit from it. Please hit that little like button. That does do wonders to encourage me to continue making this programming for all 42 of you who are following me. By the way, all 42 of you, I do sincerely appreciate a great deal. Thank you very much. If you would like to read more about this, my written column is linked below in the description. Please check it out. Otherwise, until we meet again here on Sparks 1524, have a great day and go and do great things.